Hello, everyone. This is Now and Later Strategic Planning for School Counselors, and we are really excited to be presenting virtually for GSCA. So, who are we? Well, my name is John Wosu, and I am a human developer with Think Diff LLC, as well as a middle school counselor with the Cobb County School District.
And I am Chanel Joseph Wosu. I'm also a human developer as well. And I am a middle school counselor in Atlanta Public School System.
And so the two logos you see in the upper right corner of the screen are the logos for our business, Think Diff, and also Hatching Results, where I work with and I collaborate with very often. Some of the content in this presentation is from both of these organizations. And so I just want to shout both of them out. And you're going to get some good information today. And if you enjoy it, don't hesitate to reach out and let us know how we can provide further assistance, or just let us know that you enjoy what we talked about or how it was helpful to you in some way. So we're going to start with a scenario, and Chanel's going to go ahead and lead that. And this scenario is called Answer the Call.
All right, so say your official contract hours are from 8 to 4 p.m. Today, you had to come in early to review transcripts and create schedules for 5 new students you found out about yesterday. You also had to support a student with thoughts of suicide in between your classroom lessons. You did not get a chance to eat, but that is not uncommon. It has been an unusually busy day and you are exhausted. It is now 4:15. You still have to fight 45 minutes of traffic, pick up your kids, take care of dinner, and put the kids to bed. You have just finished packing your bags and you're finally heading to your car. As you turn off the lights, your office phone rings. What do you do? Do you A, answer the call? Do you B, ignore the call? Do you C, something else? So, saying yes to any opportunity by definition requires saying no to several others. So think about this in terms of how you go through your day and how you navigate as counselors, that there was always something else. So how do we prioritize? How do we navigate? How do we identify what do we do next?
And so planning versus strategy. This is really something that we want to consider as we're figuring out what we need to get done. Chanel, what do you want to speak to for this one?
Well, one of the things I want to speak to is that thinking about first, we have to consider our time of day when we're thinking about structuring and organizing what we need to do. And there very much is a difference between planning versus the strategy, right? You can plan out all these things that you need to do, but how are you going to get them done is the question. How are we going to tackle them? How are we going to triage what needs to come first? What second? What needs to come third? And so, as you're going through your planning or your task list of what needs to be done, organize it because we know that as school counselors, things come up and things happen and they interrupt what we have planned. So now we have to change course and restructure. So, one of the things I would encourage you guys to do as you're thinking of your to do list, think about the days of the weeks that you have in your school and the typical times of day where things are often heightened, and also the days of the week where you seem to have more issues. If it's close to a break, if it's right before a break, right? So, what are the most important things you need to get done first? Put that at the top of your list. And as you're triaging, it'll help you to figure out how do I go about doing these things? First thing in the morning, it could be let me go ahead and check my emails for the day to get that out of the way so that at least I have a clean slate going into the day. And then you can look at what else is on the agenda. Are there students you need to see? Are there emergencies? And then it's going to take you through your day of lunch. What if you have groups or classroom instruction? So just really think through what needs to be done. And I would say the level, is it a one, like it has to get done now, a two or three? So organizing it in that way will help you to lay out your day or even your week. So that's how you look at planning versus strategy, right? So planning is organizing resources and setting goals, while the strategy, as we just discussed, refers to the overall direction and approach to achieving those goals.
And if you find yourself prioritizing things and you have a bunch of ones, then that means that nothing is a priority, right? Like either if everything is a priority, nothing is a priority. And so if you also have a lot of things that are very urgent and they are really important, that means that you might need to do some more strategy to make sure that in the future you're planning in a way that allows you to not always need to be in a state of reactivity and urgency. So even though it might feel like you don't have the time to sit down and do like Chanel said and really plot out and say, hey, this is a one, this is a one, maybe this is a two, maybe this is a three. Maybe you feel like you don't have time to prioritize. The reality is, if you don't take the time to pause and intentionally plan your day will plan you. So the key is not to prioritize what's on your schedule, but to schedule your priorities. And you want to think about what makes you buy in and also what makes others buy in. So we all have limited resources and we all have access to things that are important to us. And so I love the acronym TEAMS because it stands for time, energy, attention, money, and social capital. These are all things that we have that we exchange. So we might not always spend money, right? Sometimes we say pay attention and we say you spend your time doing things. So we treat these things like currency already in the way that we talk about them and use them. So it's important for us to think about it in terms of what we like to use as decision making tools and what others people use as decision making tools. So we want to connect with what makes others buy in, right? People have limited time or they might have limited attention. You might have a bunch of things that you have to get done, or your coworkers might be in a busy part of the year where they don't have a lot of free time. And so you have to make sure that when you're communicating, you understand what will make them buy in, what will make them use their limited resources to pay attention to you or spend their time doing something that you all need or the school needs, or what will make them use their energy to do things, right? Or what motivates them, right? Like if there's something that's really important that they need to get done, well, the fact that they're getting paid and they want to keep their job, that might be the motivating factor. Or maybe it's social capital, right? Maybe they love the idea that they're building relationships with people. They love to make sure that folks look at them positively. And for a lot of us school counselors, that is the thing that makes us tick. That's one of the things that makes us buy in. And it the same is true for other folks. So it's important to make sure that you know what makes folks tick, what makes folks want to buy in and use their time, energy, attention, money, or social capital to help improve things that align with whatever your cause is.
I completely agree. And just adding in, not just with buying in with your teams, but building them. As you're identifying those support systems and those people, figure out how to leverage that support, leverage your ways of supporting them so that you can also receive support, right? So if you guys can align on different things and you can build that team as well as creating that buy-in, it'll allow you to do more and to be able to flex more and to support in different ways, whether it's popping into classrooms for support for a teacher that is struggling with classroom management and having you there is a support and a reinforcement for them with students, or it's them allowing you to step in to do classroom instruction because you have created that buy-in and they understand the impact of having you present in their rooms and what that can do for them and their students.
And that's such a great point. As you can see, you have this little spark where there's overlap between clarifying your own personal buy-in and connecting with what makes others buy in. Chanel makes a great point. We actually did that with one of our classroom lessons. We had the opportunity to work with math and with ELA. And so these are classes that typically do not like for counselors to come in to do anything because that class time is so important. So I don't know. Is that the same thing for you at your school, Chanel?
I would say so. I would say that definitely. I think so. I think for me, thinking about one of the conversations, we were talking about respect with our students and what that looks like. And so when we're talking about navigating systems, I was able to push in through social studies to have a conversation, right? Because as they're navigating systems, looking at government and things of that nature, our school is a system and the students are navigating that. So using opportunities to tie into what the teachers are doing can also be, a really cool way of you connecting and building your support as well as creating buy-in.
And we want to really look for those opportunities to inspire and create synergy by our collaborations. And so Chanel did a great, she did that in terms of collaborating with social studies because there was overlap between what she needed to get done and what they needed to get done. So we did the same thing with ELA and with math. We have standards that we needed to achieve. So we looked at how can we support math, and we found that spark by looking at things that the students needed support with, like growth mindset and goal setting and time management. And we actually were able to do lessons in ELA and math that help improve the outcomes of our students. So again, buy-in is really important. But when we talk about teams, it's all about opportunity cost. We have to understand that every time we spend on something, that's something that we can't spend on something else. So that time that folks are using to allow us to come into their classrooms or to work with us or to listen with us, that is stuff that's time that they can't get back. And same thing with us. The time that we use to do various things is time that we can't use for other folks. So it's important that we clarify what is important to us and with other people. And then that gives us the opportunity to continue to work with other people. And you want folks to be excited when you come. You want folks to be happy when you come through because they know that whatever they're using is going to be worth it. Whatever they're using to allow you to come into their space is going to be worthwhile. So, why strategic planning feels like a waste of time? Well, a lot of times we are mistaking planning for strategy, right? We're planning mundane tasks and we're thinking that that's being strategic, but really we're just not having a big enough scope of what we're doing right now is going to do to change our situation in the next 5 months, 6 months, or 5, 6 years, right? So we also may have a lack of focus on the strategy. Maybe we have a strategy that is outlined. However, on a day-to-day basis, we're not thinking about what the long-term strategy entails. And so we're moving away from the strategy, which is like not having a strategy at all. Maybe there's a lack of execution. Maybe we have a plan, we have a strategy, but we're just not following through, right? Maybe we are focused on a strategy. We know what we need to do. We know what we need the plan, but we're just not following through for whatever reason, or there are things that are serving as barriers to allow us to follow through. Or maybe it's just an excessively academic exercise. Have you ever had a meeting about a meeting to plan for another meeting, right? Or had a meeting about something that could have been sent in an email, right? Sometimes we're just not being effective and we're not really being great stewards of our time. And so if we're just going through the motions for the sake of sounding smart or to make it seem like we're doing something that's productive or helpful, then that also can make it feel like strategic planning is a waste of time.
Yeah, and if you plan effectively, I think that is also the biggest thing. You can't just plan for the sake of planning. What does it actually look like? And when we're planning out things, it's not just listing ideas, but we also should be looking at logistics and how we're going to roll out that plan, how all of the parts are going to move together. Who do we need to connect with and communicate with about this plan? Who do we need to reach out to make sure it's supported and that it's done with fidelity? So that's also part of the planning process is making sure that we think through the various layers and levels of it to implement that plan, especially if you're doing something for the whole school. That's something that requires collaboration. And that means that there needs to be a level of communication so that everybody's on the same page so that your plan can be successful. So that's another piece to the planning part.
Absolutely. So when we talk about the strategic planning pyramid, we have to start with vision. So this refers to a long-term aspirational future state that an organization aims to achieve. So think about what you want your program to look like long-term. The mission is a statement that defines the organization's purpose, what it does, and for whom. So these are things that we're doing on a daily basis that help make that vision a reality. It's closely related to the vision, but it's more specific and it focuses on the present. Our values are the guiding principles that shape the culture and behavior of an organization. They are the fundamental beliefs and the principles the organization holds dear, and it's what organizations use to govern their actions and decisions. And so, for instance, as a school counselor, relationships are very important to me. I also want my students to do very well. Right. So I might have a vision where my students grow up and become healthy, contributing members of society that are equitable and that are respectful to everyone, right? The mission might be that I work to make sure that I'm delivering a comprehensive program where they're getting classroom lessons, small groups, and one-on-one interventions as necessary, and they're providing information that helps them be successful. And I'm doing that on a daily basis. The values, though, right? That's how I do it, right? Do I care so much about their grades that I'm willing to harm the relationship for students that are failing? Am I going to say disrespectful things or yell at students who are not doing well or not doing their best to motivate them so that they can do better? No, because that is not a part of my value system, right? And so it's important that we understand what our values are because if we have goals, which are specific measurable objectives that an organization aims to achieve, goals they need to be ambitious and but they should also be achievable and they should align with the organization's overall direction and purpose. So if my goal is for all of my students to get straight A's, that might not be the best goal, but because some students are making straight F's right now, right? But my values are set up to allow me to do certain things to help improve those grades and set goals that I think are realistic. But if I didn't have those values, I might be willing to do anything, right? Like I might be willing to give my students the answer to the test just so that they can have straight A's, even if they don't understand the information, right? So your goals are important, your values are super important, and all of these tie into your mission and ultimately your vision. And then your strategy refers to the plan of action that an organization uses to achieve its goal. So a good strategy should be flexible because it has to be able to adapt to changes. Just like earlier, if you get things done at 8:30 in the morning, right? Or if you have plans for 8:30 in the morning and stuff happens, there may be some things that you plan to do earlier in the day that just didn't get done. So now we have to adjust so that we can get them done later. So strategy allows us to accommodate for things that are unexpected, and our action plan is the specific set of actions and tactics that an organization will take to implement its strategy. An action plan should be detailed, including timelines, resources, responsibilities, and performance metrics. And so, if you are doing this effectively, it will allow you to make sure that every decision that you make is aligned with a long-term strategic vision for what you want to bring into reality. So I love this quote. If I only had an hour to solve a problem, I spend 55 minutes thinking about the problem and 5 minutes thinking about solutions. Sometimes we are so gung-ho on helping or getting things
Mhm.
done or just wanting something to happen that we take action. And sometimes the actions are just random acts of kindness. And if you keep doing random acts of kindness, you'll probably end up in the same situation that you were in when you started, right? Things won't necessarily get better or worse. You might get lucky, but the greatest odds of us doing things that will allow us to get better in some way or help things improve in some way come with strategic planning because we're making a plan, we're aligning with all the things that are important to us, and then we're taking actions that align with those things every single moment of every day. That is the goal.
Yeah, and along with looking at making a plan and taking action. Before you take action, part of the plan is also analyzing what's before you, figuring out what has worked, what has not worked, and things that could work based off who you're working with. Because sometimes the very thing we want to apply may not work for all students, right? So we have to keep in mind, being equitable and also thinking through reasoning, okay, if this, then that. If I want to reach this goal, right, then what does this look like if I enact this plan? Because sometimes the way we envision something coming to fruition, the way we envision it happening, it may not work out just, as much as the way we thought it would. And that's why, when John mentioned, he was very right. Be flexible. Be flexible and make sure you're able to adapt and adjust. So if you thought you were going to take this path with these group of students to reach this goal, but it didn't seem to be landing quite right, be able to switch it up and change it and adapt to make sure, because the end goal is support for those students and seeing something change. So, in order to see change, we have to also be willing to change. So, keep that in mind as we're developing our plans and putting our plans into action.
Absolutely. And so this is where we want to bring in the meat of the presentation. We are going to talk about how we are specifically using strategic planning to improve our programs and our school communities. And so you want to leverage your annual admin conference, and one thing that we do is make sure that we start with the vision. The vision should be aligned with your school and your or your district's vision. And as you can see, some of the key parts of our vision are things like we want all students to be prepared for lifelong success academically, socially, and emotionally. And so we want to describe a future world 5 to 15 years in the future where best possible student outcomes are achieved. And our mission that's going to help ensure that we bring our vision to life one day is we have a comprehensive school counseling program, and our team is here to create systemic change. And we do that by analyzing data through an equitable lens. And we make sure that we use that data to develop a comprehensive school counseling program. And we also advocate for policies and practices that increase equity and access. This is what we set out to do every day or at least on a regular basis. Even, some days you might not be at work, right? So it may not be every single day, or you might not show up as your best self. So every single day you might not hit what you're aiming for, but the mission is there. We know what we're supposed to be doing and it's clearly outlined. So this describes what you will do each day to help students realize best possible outcomes. This is what we are aiming for.
All right, and so now to my school and talking about leveraging our annual administrative conference. So our vision, we're really looking at because, and remember that your vision should, as John already mentioned, should align with not only your school's vision and mission, but also your district's. So you want to make sure that there's some connectedness so that what you're doing, especially when you're talking about planning, if you're implementing a comprehensive program, everything is aligned and makes sense, right? And there's some continuity between everything. So for us, we are an IB school. So we want to make sure that through implementation of our comprehensive school counseling program, that all scholars are globally aware, lifelong learners, and they're intrinsically motivated to succeed. They are caring, open-minded risk takers, some of those IB attributes, right? Who are engaged in post-secondary experiences that work to create a more peaceful world through intercultural understanding and respect. So thinking about the future world as well is something that you want to have when we're talking about support for our students. And then our mission, the mission of the school counseling program at Sutton Middle School is to provide equitable access to a caring, intentional, culturally sensitive, data-driven, comprehensive school counseling program. We empower all students to become inquiring, knowledgeable, and college and career ready young adults. We focus on the immediate as well as future needs of every child and help them to effectively navigate through society socially, emotionally, and academically. There's a strong commitment to bringing out the maximum potential in all students and removing all barriers of learning. So, the things that we will do each day to help students realize the best possible outcomes, because that's our goal, is to help them be successful and be life ready, college ready, and for what comes, be prepared for what comes next.
And so Chanel and I both work at schools where we put in the work and we went to all of the workshops and we learned and we worked with our entire school essentially to become recognized ASCA model programs. It is quite a process, but it is an amazing process that really helps our students and our school community. But the main thing that we really want you to understand in terms of leveraging your annual admin conference is that we have standards. And so the work that we do aligns with these standards. And so your program should too for best results.
All right, so what do I do with this annual agreement, annual administrative conference? What does this look like? So it was formerly called the annual agreement, and now it's the administrative conference. So the idea is that you first look at the data. You examine what you've, grown from, your growth areas, and the areas of successes, right? And so once you look at that, you then identify your goals. And remember, we talked about them being measurable, right? Attainable goals. So the data then guides your annual administrative conference. It tells you what you should be looking at. So once you identify your SMART goals, you also want to lay out how you're going to achieve them. What is the method in which you will reach those goals? So an example could be we want to help close the gap when we're looking at attendance, right? So that means we'd have to analyze attendance data, loop in administrators about the concerns and issues we see, desegregate the data to identify the students or the subgroup that are having the most issues with attendance to be able to then pull in support people. If it's our English language learners, can we pull in our ESOL services to help us support with communication with parents? Can we figure out groups to support those students to understanding their why? So whatever it is you're doing with your students, you have to, when we talked about planning and strategic, right? You identify your use of time because that matters, right? We know that it should be 80-20. How are you spending your time? Also asking and advocating for quiet time, focus time for you to be able to really focus on a comprehensive program and implementing these goals. What does that look like? You need time to look at the data. You need un uninterrupted time to meet with your other counselors to discuss how are we going to go about doing this? Are we doing this through groups? What does this look like, right? So when you set those clear expectations for your school and for your work, people also get an understanding of what you do because a lot of times they don't know. And so we have to advocate for our roles and what that looks like. And so this administrative conference helps to do that, right? It also gives you an opportunity to ask for support from your administrators, right? So I want to be able to go into the classroom during this month. This month, we have these things happening. So you get to share from what's happening on your view, because remember, your admin, your teachers only see one part. They don't always see everything else that you need to do. So your administrative conference gives you an opportunity to share what things look like from the other side for you. And it helps to outline it and make it clear. And so some of the things that, many counselors have said, these are some things from counselors in the field. One example is I used to think the annual administrative conference was something we did during an evaluation year. Now I realize that the annual administrative conference can be useful every year, especially to obtain and or maintain administrative support. And that's absolutely right. You need that support to do what we do. You need that support in order to help you advocate. It's a tool and a resource to help guide what you need to do, but also for others to know what you need to do and how you can do that. Right. And another person said, I used to think that the conference was a way for the principal to monitor and be aware of what I am doing. Now I think the conference is a way to advocate for myself, to open up the possibility to do things differently due to more awareness of the program. It could also be a way to say, hey, you know what? I really want to go to this conference for professional development to ensure that I can fully support my students. And in the admin conference, you could talk about it looks like this will be about this much. That's where you can even ask for support from your schools and your districts. So please use this as a tool to help you be a better counselor.
Absolutely. And so we wanted to make sure that you had access to the template. And so you can click here and this will take you directly to a template, which is from the ASCA ramp documents. And so we've also included one of our templates. No, I'm sorry, one of our completed examples. And so we're gonna go share that real quick. Are you able to see my annual admin conference?
I am able to see it.
Excellent. So, as you can see, it's fully completed. This is from last school year. And so students with two or more referrals that's our priority. We dug into the data, we did our data story, and we figured out that we had challenges around these issues. And the other issue was students within 125 points of performing proficient on our reading inventory, which is a test that's given 3 times a year to really see how well students can read and what grade level they're reading on. And so that helps us target the students we want to provide support for. And that also helped us figure out what we wanted our goals to be. As you can see, we have two annual outcome goals that are also aligned with our school's goals. And then you can see our use of time. We pick a week in both the fall and the spring that is reflective of what our program generally looks like. And so we're not doing it on a week where we're doing a bunch of weird stuff, but we're finding a week that, is fairly reflective. And then we're actually tracking our time at least 2 times a year so that we can get an idea of what it's supposed to look like. All right. And so our goal is 80/20. As you can see, we were pretty close last year. And that's after years of advocating at the district and at the school level for us to be able to do this. And as you can see, we also still have non-counseling duties. There are fair share of duties that we do that everyone has to do. And so that's a part of being a member of the school community. All right, you see my caseload is outlined. So if anyone, wherever they ask, what should I be doing, or who I should be working with, all of this is outlined in our annual admin conference, as well as professional development opportunities that we are interested in and how much they cost, and then other types of school and district committee work and professional work that we're doing. We also have an annual budget. We have a no referral celebration that works so well that we've gotten more funding each year. So our first year we had less, and now in previous years, in the last 2 years actually, we got this same amount. And so we celebrate intentionally every single student that did not earn any referrals every quarter of the year. And so we do things like extraordinary behavior and giving everyone a sour punch straw who didn't get any referrals, and then they get to sign a poster, and we hang that poster up, and we celebrate those students. And every year, every part of the year, we get a little bit bigger with the prizes that we give, and at the end, we have a big celebration. We had an ice cream party last year for the students who didn't earn any referrals in the school. All right, and then last, we have all the people who work with our counseling program or support us in some way, and then we make sure that we sign, and your admin can sign as well, and that way everything is outlined and you know what you should be doing. So if there's ever a point in the year where things are kind of getting off track, you can go back to that annual admin conference and say, hey, this is what we talked about doing before, but because I'm on hallway duty so much, or because I have to do testing, or because I'm coordinating all these 504s and IEPs, it's difficult for me to do what we agreed upon earlier in the year. So what adjustments can be made so that I can support students in the way that we agreed on earlier in the year? All right. So last couple things: inspire, relate, leverage. You want to make sure that you fill people with the urge to want to do something, whether we are there or not. We want to use our relationships and understanding relationships between other people and systems to really help improve the way that folks navigate within their system. And we want to make sure that we use the power of our programs to influence a person or a situation to achieve a better outcome, a particular outcome, right? And so this is what it's all about: inspire, relay, leverage. And we use our school counseling program. We leverage the power of school counseling to improve outcomes. So remember, you have something to say. You absolutely got something to say. And it is these things: words that inspire, words that relate, and words that leverage. Actions that do those things too. All right. And so last thing: career, social, financial, and physical and community well-being are essential. These are important as well. So when you think about strategic planning, what does that look like for your entire life? You can have an amazing career, but a terrible life. We want to have both. So is your job and your career aligning with well-being for your holistic life? All right. So
Also, can you make it align for your well-being? And what can you do to restructure that if it is not aligned? So that's something to also think about. So along with if it's aligning, but how do I make these things more aligned? How do I make sure that overall you are good and in a good space so that you can support your students and be that amazing dynamic counselor that you are?
absolutely. So I'm John Wosu.
All right. And I'm Chanel Joseph Wosu.
Thank you. You all have a great rest of the conference.
All right.